Every investor knows the importance of having their money work for them. But what if you could get $1 to do the same work as $5, $10, or even $20? It can be done, and there's an easy way to measure how much heavy lifting your money is doing for you. And you can do this with a formula called the cash-on-cash return. Whenever you calculate cash-on-cash return, it shows you how much money is being earned based on the actual amount of cash you have invested in the property. In other words, it represents how hard your money is working for you. It's ultimately a ratio of two numbers: how much cash you have invested versus the amount you've gotten back in earnings in a given time period. You can find your cash-on-cash return by taking your annual pre-tax income and dividing it by the actual cash you have invested into the deal. And this gives you your cash-on-cash return. Now, it's important to recognize we're not dividing it by the total cost of the asset, we're dividing it by the amount of cash you have put into it. For example, if you buy a rental property for $100,000, but you only put down $20,000 of your own cash to buy and improve it, and then your net gain for the year, in other words, the money you actually put into your pocket after all expenses and debt service are paid is $5,000, then your cash-on-cash return is calculated by taking $5,000 and dividing that by the $20,000 you have invested, giving you an annual cash-on-cash return of 25%. Easy enough, right? And did you notice how the full purchase price of $100,000 wasn't even included in that calculation? That full purchase price didn't play any part in figuring out what your cash-on-cash return was. What if you put down $10,000 while earning that same amount of net income? Well, then your cash-on-cash return would be 50%. What if you only put down 3.5%? Well, then your cash-on-cash return would be 142.86%. I mean, heck, what if you could put nothing down? Well, in that case, your cash-on-cash return would be infinite. It literally couldn't get any better. And as you crunch these numbers, it might even make you start to wonder, how could I invest as little as possible in any deal I pursue to make my cash-on-cash return better and better and make my money work harder and harder for me? Now, unfortunately, the cash-on-cash return can be a little misleading. Even though it's a simple formula with only two basic numbers at work, some investors can pretty easily miscalculate one or both of these numbers, either the annual net income or the initial cash investment. When these numbers are miscalculated, what looks like a 10% cash-on-cash return when you buy could easily turn into a 10% loss if you start renovating or discover the renovation costs are twice as much as what you estimated. Things can also go sideways if the property sells for less than you expected or generates significantly less revenue than you anticipated, or if the vacancy rate proves to be a lot higher than you thought it would be, or any number of other unexpected problems. So while the math is easy, using accurate numbers can often be kind of a challenge. The cash-on-cash return makes use of one of the greatest advantages real estate has over other types of investments, and that is leverage. The ability to buy assets that are worth far more than you could buy on your own because you're able to invest with borrowed money. Now, the other side of the coin to using other people's money is that when you borrow money, every extra dollar you borrow means higher interest, fees, and ongoing debt service payments. Consider a rental property, for example. Let's say you buy a rental property for $100,000 cash and rent it out for $1,200 a month. Let's assume your non-mortgage expense comes out to $500 per month or $6,000 each year, including everything from the vacancy rate to property management fees to taxes, repairs, and insurance, which leaves you with a net income of $700 per month. Now, since you bought it with $100,000 cash with no financing at all, your annual net revenue comes out to $8,400. And that means you have a cash-on-cash return of 8.4%. Now, for a rental property or an investment that generates this kind of return year after year, that's a pretty solid return that most investors would embrace. Now, imagine you finance the purchase of this property instead, borrowing $80,000 at 6% interest for a 30-year loan. And instead of coming up with $100,000 of your own cash, you only invest $20,000, but now you're also saddled with an additional monthly expense of $479.64 for the mortgage payment. Well, that brings your monthly cash flow down to only $220.36, putting your annual profit at $2,644.32. So while this drastically reduces your annual net income from the property, it also drastically actually improves your cash on cash return, bringing it up to 13.22%. So even though your annual return is much lower, your smaller $20,000 cash investment is still working much harder than if you would purchase this property without any financing at all. And if you took the same $100,000 cash amount you had in the first place, you could potentially buy 5 properties like this and ultimately make a lot more money in the long run and have a much stronger cash on cash return for each individual property. So cash on cash return is a simple and effective way to analyze and compare any investment, whether it's real estate or otherwise. But like any ratio, it doesn't give you enough information to make a fully informed investment decision. So don't stop here. It's just one of several tools you can use to predict what the outcome will be. Take the time to analyze a deal with several different formulas to get a deeper understanding of the upsides and downsides to the opportunity you're looking at. If you want to learn about another common formula, be sure to check out this other video to learn about cap rates and the important role they have to play in evaluating an investment property. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to expand your real estate knowledge even further, be sure to check out REtipster.com and head over to the Terms Library, where you can learn about all kinds of formulas, tricks, and other investment terminology that you're going to need to know in the real estate industry. See you next time.